Mirë se erdhët në Public Square. Unë jam Ditmir Bushati. I ftuar i sotëm është Romano Prodi, një mik i veçantë i vendit tonë. Romano Prodi është themeluesi i qendrës majt italiane dhe një nga figurat më të spikatura të ashtu quajturës Republike e Dytë e Italisë. Ai mban mi supe një karrierë gjysmë shekullore, e shtrirë në rrafshin italian, europian dhe ndërkombëtar, si akademik, politikan dhe intelektual publik. Piknisja e tij politike është viti 1978, ku emërua ministër industrisë, tregtisë dhe sipërmarrjes në qeverinë e drejtuar nga demokristiani Giulio Andreotti. Dija, talenti politik dhe pasioni për vendin do ta çonte Prodin në pozicionin e kryeministrit të Italisë 2 herë në periudhat 96-98 dhe 2006-2008. Gjatë vitit 97, figura e kryeministit Romano Prodi personifikonte burgshtetasin që ndihmoi vendin tonë për dalë nga spirali e rrezikshme e anarkisë. Gjatë periudhës 99-2004, Romano Prodi shërbeu si president i Komisionit Evropian, duke dhënë një kontribut të çmuar në skenën politike europiane. Kështu, Bashkimi Evropian u zgjerua drejt lindjes, duke shënuar zgjerimin më të madh që nga krijimi i tij. Në janar të vitit 2003, presidenti Romano Prodi propozoi krijimin e unazës së miqve rreth e qark BE-s. Ky propozim synonte antarësimin e shteteve të Ballkanit Perëndimor në BE në harkun kohor të një dekade dhe njëkohësisht krijimin e unazës së miqve rreth e qark një BE të zgjeruar. Një pjesë e këtyre propozimeve u trupzua në agjendën e Selanikut të vitit 2003, ku BE-a u zotua për antarësimin e shteteve të Ballkanit Perëndimor në BE. Prodi e shihte Ballkanin si një lloj ure midis strategjisë zgjerimit dhe lindjes dhe asaj që ai e quante politika e re e fqinjësisë. Përmes kësaj politike do të krijohej një marrëdhënie solide me fqinjet e një BE të zgjeruar, në një hark që do të shtrihej në Rusi, Ukrainë, Kaukaz dhe Moldavi e deri në Marok, Tunizi dhe Gjetk. Vizita e presidentit të Komisionit Evropian Romano Prodi me 31 janar 2003 në Tiranë shënoi edhe nisjen e bisedimeve për nënshkrimin e marrëveshjes së stabilizim asociimit ndërmjet Shqipërisë dhe Bashkimit Evropian. Ndërkohë, gjatë viteve 2006-2008, roli i kryeministit Prodi ishte vendimtar për procesin e antarësimit të Shqipërisë në NATO dhe hyrjen në fuqi të marrëveshjes së stabilizim asociimit me Bashkimin Evropian. Për kujdesin e tij të veçantë ndaj Shqipërisë, Romano Prodi e ka treguar edhe pas largimit nga politika aktive, duke kërkuar një vëmendje të shtuar të Italisë dhe madje aktivizim të një politike mesdhetare në rajon me theks të veçantë tek Shqipëria. President Prodi, it's an honor and pleasure to be together at Public Square, and thank you very much for accepting the invitation. I would like to start our discussion by asking you a specific question in relation to the security environment our continent is facing as the result of Russian aggression against Ukraine, and we are just 1 year after this terrible event. According to your assessment, what are the main challenges Europe is facing nowadays?
Look, in your question, you have put the right question. The aggression, is an aggression, and the only reaction could have been to resist to the aggression. Clearly, the situation has become worse and worse every day. If you count the number of casualties, is a tragedy, not only a war, is a tragedy. And even more, there is no signal of any agreement for peace or truce. So the perspective are for, something that will go on and on, in at least in definitive time. So, because both sides say that they will deal only after a victory, And so it's the perspective of peace or truce are very scarce. The consequence, unexpected by Putin, is a strong link and agreement inside Europe and between Europe and United States. Probably Putin, when started his aggression, he was thinking that he would have had a welcome by many Ukrainians. Second, in his own efficient army. And third, as you mentioned before, in a non-compact reaction by US and Europe. So now the problem is that we need a peace. We need, because you asked me the consequence. This is the picture. You asked the consequence. Consequences are incredible. First of all, what I told you, some joint action. But second is the German rearmament. German rearmament is something absolutely new. Look, a country that for decades, all the political parties denied that should have increased the military expenditure. In one day, all the parties decided to have a very heavy budget balance, and this, in the long run, will also change the nature of Europe, because Europe, till now, has had some sort of engine shaped by France in politics and the military field, and Germany in economics. But if there is not a way out, Germany in 5 years, let us put it this way, will become leader both in foreign policy and in economic policy. And this, is a big change. This is a big change, And second, there is a total unity among European countries in defending Ukraine. But in terms of, let's say, general European internal policy, this has been created some sort of, not I say split, but of differentiation between 9 Eastern countries and the other, let us call traditional European countries. Well, it's not so important, it's not so deep, but it is taking shape. And, I'm raising also the problem, which is the American attitude vis-a-vis this aspect. Clearly, we didn't say I am strongly for NATO. I understand that the security of my country, Europe, is the link to NATO. But I didn't like that President Biden went to, not only to Kiev, that is obvious, but only to Warsaw and not to Brussels. Yes. Because I think that this has, started to put some uneasiness among the European leaders. I found some sort of uneasiness, this is the word. And, it's not a moment to do that. It's the moment in which the United States must have an interest in unite Europe and keep Europe united. And, why this is important, because there are objective different interests between US and Europe in the economic field. Let's say the price of energy is totally different in spite of the decrease of gas. We pay the gas 5 times more than in the United States. There is the IRI decision that is absolutely normal in this case, but it puts an invitation to the European companies to move to the United States, to, some sort of advantage of the American companies in the new field like batteries or electrical cars. Let's say some sort, and if you put this together, the danger is in a division in a moment in which Europe has been more united than in any time before because of the Ukrainian case. Then we are talking about Balkans, now in our conversation. And I tell you frankly, after the war, Balkans has been forgotten. You know what I mean? Forgotten. And this is an enormous mistake, because my point was, and it still is, that all the former Yugoslavian countries plus Albania must be part of the Union as soon as possible.
President Prodi, allow me to interrupt you a little bit, and I apologize for that. Before moving to the Balkans, you have been speaking about the economic consequences and political consequences and security consequences of this war, mostly for Europe and US. It is true that US and EU politically were quite united, but on the other hand, if we count the population of the globe, we see that 80% of the population of the globe are not part of countries that introduced sanctions to Russia or condemned Russian invasion of Ukraine. And if I refer, for instance, to China, a country that you know very well, or India, which is a democracy in Asia, and this gives the perception that this is a European war, this is just another unfolding conflict in Europe after the conflicts we have seen in the former Yugoslavia, or the conflict in South Ossetia and later on in Crimea. What is your take when you take into account also China, India, but also countries in Latin America? Why they are hesitant on being part of the same boat when considering Russian aggressions against Ukraine?
Well, let us first stress what you told, because there is some sort of satisfaction on the Western side, because more than 140 countries were in favor of Ukraine. But we have to be very deep in our thinking, because 60%, more than 60% of population, they voted against or abstained. And, as in this case, abstention is very similar to the vote against. There is not much difference. And what is even more, the vote was absolutely the same that was done the 2nd of March of last year in the beginning of the war. So there is no change in the split of the war. But why that? Why that? You could think why there is not, a unanimity against aggression. A very simple reason, there is substantial difference in the long term political strategy between the Chinese foreign policy and the American foreign policy. China, is 20% of world population and only 6-7% of arable land. Number one in industrial production and no raw material, well, very scarce raw materials and very scarce energy. And so they need to have strong relations, long-term, fixed to the countries that can supply these needs, And so where are Africa, South America, and of course also to try to have some sort of, let's say, totally hostile country inside Asia. This policy has an incredible continuity. It's the same policy that we have since decades. The United States, they are in a fantastic situation in which they have everything, They export energy, they export food, and raw materials. Well, they are plus and minus, but it's not so. And so the continuity of American policy cannot taken granted, especially. And so you have a president who started the war in Iraq, and then when the bodies of poor soldiers killed, they come back, there is a popular reaction, and then there is a change of policy. In Afghanistan, we have the same thing, And so there is, I think that this strategy, the Chinese strategy to have, let's say, some sort of great number of people, even of a country, close together in order to guarantee this policy is a long-term policy. And in spite of all the efforts to change it, this has not been possible, even during the Ukrainian war. And there is no hint of the major change in the future. Also because, you have sanctions, but if you analyze the figures of trade between China and Russia, between Gulf country and Russia, between Turkey and Russia, and so on, you see that there is enough number of countries who are able in some way to circumvent, to not to obey to the sanctions. So even in this field, in this economic field, we have some sort of standstill, And if these things go on, clearly the globalization that is already under stress, is already in danger, will be even more under threat, And this is really a fact that is encouraged by the war. Third, inflation. Inflation was already going on before,
Yes.
And there was a delay of consciousness by Federal Reserve, by IMF, by European Central Bank, because there were too many years of stability in the past, But the war has increased this rate of inflation, And clearly there is a strong damaging to the weak countries. and the damage has been increased with the problem of increase of food price.
President Prodi, now it's time to move a little bit also to our neighborhood, to the Balkans. I remember when you were president of European Commission, in January 2003, you came up with a proposal on the creation of the so-called ring of friends of European Union, where you were one of the first to highlight the idea on the eve of the Big Bang of enlargement with Eastern and European countries. You were foreseeing Western Balkans to be part of the Union within a decade, and to have this ring of friends around an enlarged European Union stretching from Morocco, Tunisia to Ukraine, Russia, and so on and so forth. What is happening now? I mean, we have been living for like 4 or 5 years under, let's say, the idea of President Macron, according to which there should be first a reformed EU and then an enlarged one. And later on, he came up with a proposal about European political community, which is more or less mirroring the Council of Europe with few exceptions nowadays. I have seen one of the first consequences or results of the war in Ukraine is a change of perception of the Europeans about EU's finality. Because when we discuss about Western Balkans, we are just an underbelly of Europe, because we are in between Italy and Greece, Slovenia and Croatia, Bulgaria and Romania. So basically we are being surrounded by European Union, and it's impossible to speak about the final border, which is different with the countries that are part of the European partnership. How do you see the developments in this respect, and what would be a few ideas that would strengthen not only the cooperation between our region and the European Union, but would bring closer our region to European Union?
Look, first of all, you mentioned it when I proposed the enlargement of the Union and the Ring of Friends. It's clearly, it was another, even if it was in this century, it was another century, because things had deteriorated so much. Because it was, my proposal was taken positively by almost everybody, you know, and there were every year meetings with Russia, with an increasing cooperation. I always mention that in the last meeting before I left the Commission, a journalist, a leading Russian journalist, asked to me and Putin when Russia should have entered into the European Union. Of course, I answered, no, it's too big, Russia, but we could work together, because our destiny is to work together, you know. And I was a bit joking, I told, like whiskey and soda. And Putin told, no, like vodka, caviar. But this was the only difference, you know, to see how things changed. But my idea is still concerning Western Balkan, going in the second part of your question. My idea is very simple. Western Balkan must be as soon as possible part of the Union, and Albania to former Yugoslavian countries. But as soon as possible, look, why I am so adamant, they don't give problem altogether. They are such a small part of European budget, you know. It's not, and then there are not any more, you know, of course, we have to have serious negotiations, All the issues must be examined: justice, parliament, press, free trade, antitrust, everything, but immediately. And when Macron told, no, let us wait for the negotiation for Albania and Northern Macedonia, it was a message of put this in the second time, you know. Why I am so, because you have to do that, and then there is Ukraine now, but then not enlarging anymore, changing institutions, and build the Ring of Friends. Ring of Friends are different. Yes. Is an agreement, bilateral agreement for all the countries, from Belarus to Morocco, including Israel, with the European Union. Each one has, of course, a different negotiation, because they have different problems, they have different type of trade, and so on and so on and so on. And then, but look, the Ukrainian war has delayed so much all these problems. I am unable to I have also deep thinking about Mediterranean cooperation, common universities, and so on and so on. The attention is all concerning the war. I understand it, but is it also a drama? It is a drama, but is also an excuse.
Yeah.
I put you the question mark.
And yes, and then I will come up again with another question. I remember, I was a student at the time, but I remember pretty well, when you were president of European Commission, you saved North Macedonia, at that time Macedonia, from a conflict by offering the country the perspective of becoming an EU member, and by making a labor division for the very first time between the candidate status, which is a candy, or which is a political recognition, and accession talks. So you offer to them, through an incremental approach, an instrument that saved somehow the country from the conflict. Don't you think that something similar can be done for Western Balkan countries now, by including them in the budgetary cycle of European Union, by preparing them to be part of the internal market, based of course on their performance, in order to bridge the development gap between us and our neighbors that are part of European Union?
Well, I have to be honest with you. I think that could be opportune, should be done, but I also think that till the end of this terrible war, you have no political tension for that. You know, it's like waiting for something that never comes. You know, and so it's difficult to put energy in a new. I also think that if the war should have started before, we couldn't never have the next generation EU or the other solidarity, you know, because the consequence of the war is to dedicate everything to that, and not to change the agenda. So my answer to your question is yes,
President Prodi, everybody knows your opinions, your actions when you were in the Italian politics and when you were the helm of European affairs as President of European Commission. I'm wondering what Italy can do more in this respect. But first, bilaterally towards Albania. I know that you have done a lot, and Italy has always been a European window of opportunity for Albania and Albanians. But I've read this book, Strana Vita la Mia, where you are quite critical on the Italian politics as far as engagement with Albania is concerned, and you speak also a bit critically about Turkish-Albanian Albanian relationship. So we are speaking about a country where 20% of our population is living in Italy. What would be your piece of advice for the current political establishment in Italy and also in Albania? What can we do more?
No, we must do more. In my book, I told simply, look, politics does not tolerate empty space. And if there is not Italy, there will be Turkey. But with my idea of Europe, Albania must be part of Europe, you know. And I don't misunderstand me. I was in favor of starting negotiation with Turkey. I think that Turkey is a great country, but after that period of negotiation, I don't analyze whether it was our responsibility or Turkey's, but there is a totally different political strategy. Turkey wants to be a strong, big regional power, and with a different interest vis-à-vis Europe, cooperation, but with a long-term strategy. And I do think that Albania is part of Europe. So not against Turkey, but strongly part of Europe. But I also do understand, and I admit that if we don't do more, we oblige, we invite Turkey to do more for the reason of the empty space. And so waiting for the change of European policy, we have to make strong bilateral links. In terms of small companies, trade, the relation between Albania and Italy are pretty good, but there is not anymore the political dialogue with the continuity that I think is necessary. So business are good. We have to increase business. There are also new touristic projects in Albania. I was a few weeks ago to Tirana for my honorary degree, and I'm so happy to be even with this linked to Albania. But there is no, let's say, there is externity. Italian is not spoken in the young generation. The quotidianity that we had in that time is disappearing. Of course, world is different, English is dominating, the world is big, but there is a common interest. And also, I have noted that a common desire also to have more more and more links, but now can be done mainly bilaterally. And why not to have a conference for some sort of 5 years strategy of brother countries, or some sort of putting together many things that we do together. I do remember when I had a daily conversation with the Albanian leaders, respecting, with respect to Albania, I prohibited to any Italian politician to campaign in the Albanian political campaign, because I say we have to follow, we have to work together, but please, no interference, no, and to organize this type of relation, I think could be a plus. So, to be synthetic, relations are good, economic relations are strong. There is no idea of how to have a common strategy that will also be very useful for starting the negotiation with the European Union.
President Prodi, your career is remarkable. I'm focusing on the political career. I mean, you became minister for the first time 1 year before I was born. Then you were the leader of Ulivo, and you were.
What a child!
Yes, you were the leader of Ulivo, and we are all impressed when you managed to bring together a group of center-left parties from center to the left. You managed to be elected twice as Prime Minister of Italy, and now we have Giorgia Meloni, who is a leader of Fratelli d'Italia, but recently we see that Partito Democratico has elected also a young lady with whom I've been working while she was member of European Parliament, and she was very much interested on Albania and also in the region. What would be your piece of advice for her, but also more in general for center-left forces and politicians, having been lived under, let's say, different periods of times, from crisis to crisis?
So you asked me to tell to Mrs. Schlein to have attention to Albania. Yes, I shall do it. Because
no, also to us in Albania and also everywhere. You have.
I don't know. I am serious. I am serious because you reminded me that this tradition of relation of the center-right party with Albania must be revived and must be increased. And so I told it joking, but I am serious. And what I promise you, I shall tell her to pay special attention on the political commonality that we must have, not only on the daily relation, on the political commonality, because we need to have a frame for the picture of agreement. Needs a frame. We have many pictures, but not one frame. This is what I think, and this will be also important as a guarantee for the future membership of the Union. But I think that also we could try to have a let's say a special action vis-à-vis the French government to tell them look, let us end the problem, because we know that in the end of the story, they are European and we are European. So in the end of the story, but to delay is only a liability, not an asset. This could be another Italian action, to work with especially with France, because France was uneasy on the problem, but inside the European Union, and the political common frame is also useful to remind Italy that this is a mission of the country.
Yes.
So this is not, a negligible step. It is an important progress.
President Prodi, my very last question. What is the recent book you are reading that you could recommend also to all who will be watching this conversation?
Look, well, I have many Italian books concerning. Well, in the last time I read books concerning Ukraine, of course, there are many essays on the maybe strange books. I read recently the Kissinger memoirs, the Kissinger books on the
leadership,
leading people. This is a very useful idea, and is a strain that I find fresh idea from a man who's 99 years old, and who also about this problem of the clash between East and West, even if he was really, and he is really Western, he understands that, some sort of compromise is part of our future. This is why I like his book,
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure